Well, the Papen family are grassroots pioneer people in New Mexico. My father and my uncle and my aunt were all born in Las Vegas, New Mexico. My mother came from Chicago. So my grandfather came from Leavenworth, Kansas on the railroad and decided that Las Vegas was going to be the capital of New Mexico, so that's where he settled in and stayed there till after the Great Depression, and then he moved on to California. My family came to Las Cruces, and my uncle's family came in '39 when he bought in with the Weisenhorn Insurance Company, and my dad followed in '41 to work in the insurance company with my uncle. And that's how we arrived in Las Cruces, and I was born here in 1942. My dad was drafted into the service and was in the Navy, and when he came back from the Navy in 1945, he and my uncle decided that the insurance business wasn't big enough for both families, so we moved on over to Arizona in '46 and came back in 1955 to Doña Ana County, and then I was raised in the southern part of the county down at Barreno, New Mexico. After we moved down to the farm in Barreno, I went to school at Gadsden Junior High and High School, and I played football down there. I loved to play football. It was a great sport. I was just fast enough and big enough where they let me play fullback on the offense, and I was a linebacker on defense. Some games I like defense better than offense, but on the offensive end of it, when I was a senior, I was an all-district honorable mention in football, and I knew I could play football a little bit. My dad thought I could play football a lot. So we got ready to go to college, of course. New Mexico State was our choice, and Warren Woodson was the coach out here at New Mexico State, and that's when they had all the great football teams with Charlie Johnson and Purvis Atkins, and they won the Sun Bowl in '59 and '60, and my dad and I went to all those games, and we went into Warren Woodson's office and talked to him about the possibility of trying out for the football team. And he was not real friendly, but not too bad, as he leaned back in his chair and he kind of laughed at it and says, "No, I don't think you have a chance. There's no sense in you coming out." So that was the end of my athletic career, and that was a lot of fun. When we lived in Arizona, I had a paper route for about 3 years and delivered papers, and my mother always said the reason I had such big, strong legs is because I rode that bicycle up and down the hills delivering those newspapers as a 9 and 10 and 11-year-old, and there's probably some truth to that. And then, of course, we moved back to New Mexico and back to the farm, and my first summer on the farm, I learned how to drive the tractor, I learned how to hoe cotton, I learned how to haul the cotton to the gin, and it was a lot of fun, and I liked it, but it was a lot of hard work for not very much money. And so I decided to move on, and the next summer came along, and my dad got me a job working on the house down here in Mesa Park that Mr. Fountain was building, just in front of the Holy Cross Retreat House. And the gentleman that was building the house was an old-time builder, and he put me to work hammering nails and picking up stuff, and I worked all summer on that job, and it was a lot of fun, and it was great, but it was hot and hard work. And so as we came into my sophomore year, junior year in high school, whichever one that was, my mother decided that I shouldn't have to spend all my life outside working in the sun. So she kind of at Christmas time bent my uncle's ear. He had just bought the bank in November of '58. And bent my uncle's ear about giving me a job inside so I could work inside and not have to be out in the sun. And sure enough, at the end of that semester of school, Frank Papen called and says, "Come on down, John, make an application and we'll put you to work." And unbeknownst to me, I started a 40-plus year career in the banking business. Fortunately for me, I felt like always at New Mexico State they had an open door policy, because I could go in and talk to most any of them anytime, and they would put their work aside and visit for a few minutes. And of course, I was a local boy and I was going to school, and Dean Guthrie knew me and shared some of his experiences with me and encouraged me to continue. There was a few times in my career when I thought maybe I didn't want to finish school or couldn't or for whatever, and he was a great encouragement to me, and I really appreciate that. I come from a family of 8 kids. I was the third, the oldest boy, and I was the namesake. I was the only one in my family to go to college. And I knew I wanted to do it, and I knew I needed to get through, but I struggled some, and Dean Guthrie really helped me. John Loveland was a big influence. He came a little later in my career. I was kind of toward the end when he came, but I appreciate his friendship so much, not only during that time, but over the years. Pappy Haight, of course, taught us our accounting, which I'll be ever grateful for. In the banking business and in the finance business, you have to know balance sheets and income statements and financial statements, and he taught us a great deal. And he was a pretty gruff guy, but he knew what he was talking about, and if you learned the basics, you knew what you were doing. And of course, there was old Dr. Ziegefuss, and his recommendation for me was to quit school and join the Army. Well, he was more like a father to me than an uncle. And I never knew what to call him. I knew that I couldn't, around the bank, I couldn't call him Uncle Frank, and he didn't like me to call him Mr. Papen, and I didn't feel comfortable calling him Frank. That's what he told me to call him. And when he was elected to the Senate in 1969, and I was fortunate enough to go with him to Santa Fe many times and share some time up there with him, I noticed everybody called him Senator, and that sounded good to me. And all the rest of my life, he was the senator to me, and he was a wonderful man and taught me so many things about people, about customer contact and customer retention, and taking good care of your customer and your employees, being honest and fair. And he was just a wonderful, wonderful person. Many times I've said I got my formal education at New Mexico State, but I got my PhD in living from Franco Papen, driving him around and learning the different aspects of life from him. He was a great politician. He always knew what to say at the right place at the right time, and he always drew a crowd. And it was just wonderful for me to be able to share 15 or 20 years with him doing those things. Back in the middle 60s, 65, I was working in the installment loan department, and my job was collections. And of course, we were big in the automobile business, and we used to do business with dealers. And of course, we had a lot of dealer paper on the books, and we collected them and repossessed them and had to get rid of them. And one of the dealers here hired a pretty slick little salesman from El Paso. But really, we found out later that he was from Juarez. And he sold a bunch of cars into Juarez to doctors and lawyers, and they'd put pretty good down payments down, but our underwriting wasn't then like it is today, and we didn't check their credit real good. You know, if a guy had a couple $1,000 down payment on a $4,500 car, that's a pretty good deal. So they just bought the paper, and sure enough, first payment default. Okay, we couldn't collect any payments, and we'd call the numbers and nobody'd answer, and we'd write letters and we'd get them back in the mail. So the boss says, you know, somebody got to go to Juarez and find those cars. So another guy and I started making weekly trips to Juarez to look for these cars. And it'd take us a while to find the streets and the addresses and the houses, and then we'd have to wait. Sometimes we'd wait way late in the evening or early in the morning for the people to come home. And we always had a set of keys made from the dealers so we could just jump in that car and fire it up and go. We knew that if we get the car a block or two away that they couldn't catch us, because none of them had telephones in Juarez in those days. Only a very few people, very, very wealthy people, had phones. Today they have cell phones, so you couldn't do that. So we were successful repossessing 4 or 5 of those cars, and we came out pretty good on them because they did make such a big down payment. Well, I remember there was one doctor down there that had this yellow Pontiac Bonneville. It was really a pretty car. And I'd seen it a couple of times, but I never had been able to be in a position to repo it. So one night we were down there and we were looking for 3 different cars, and we'd go around and we'd stay a while looking and hope that one of them would show up. Well, one night that yellow Pontiac showed up, and we knew that he'd converted it to propane, so we weren't sure if it was going to affect the way we drove the car or took it. But we decided, yeah, what the heck, we're here, we don't want to go home empty-handed. So we got the car started and got it back to Las Cruces, and of course we always hid the cars for a few weeks so they didn't come back and steal them back. And we headed up on North Solano Street in a used car place in the backyard, and we finally got time to where we were going to clean it up and put it on the market to sell it. And the cleanup crew that was cleaning the car found 3 guns, 3 handguns in that vehicle. And they called me and said, "What are you going to do with these handguns?" And I said, "Handguns?" So I went up and looked at them, and they were nice pistols. And I said, "You know what? If you guys keep them, you don't know where they came from, and I don't know anything about them." And that kind of ended my career going down to Juarez repossessing cars. I let someone else do that. A number of students have come and visited with me over the years, and of course it's a wide range of things in the world to be looking at, and my little micro fish world is the banking business or the finance world. And my advice always is to take all the finance and accounting and economic classes that are available to you if you want to get into that profession. Of course, technology has changed so dramatically in the last 10 or 15 years. That really will dictate where you go and what you do. You need to be very technically proficient and continue to stay up with the technology because it changes so fast. But learn the basics, take the courses, make the commitment to learn the very basic part of all the financial dealings, and you will do well in life. Well, success to me is not what you have in material things or wealth or money. To me, success is how you lead your life and how you feel about your life and how you feel about your work and your commitment, your dedication to your job, how well you do it, and how well you have your customer satisfaction. To me, a lot of my success, I feel, is when the older generation in Las Cruces that has banked with us for many years comes by and visits with me, even if they don't have any banking business or if they're just making a deposit and they come by and we talk about the old days and things that happened around here, and if they have a banking need, I can always take care of them. In fact, I had a customer in just last week that for about 20 years of my career, he was a borrowing customer, a big borrowing customer, and he did well. He sold out, and now we borrow from him in the form of CDs and deposits. And he still comes by to visit to see how we're doing. As you know, we've had a couple of name changes in the last 4 years, and there has been some change in our bank. But to me, success is just the fact that the people come in and still see and visit with me. Well, I think the thing that individually the thing I'm most proud of is my degree from New Mexico State. I came from a large family of 8. I was the 3rd one, and I was the only one to go to college. And when I got that degree, that was one of the most cherished things that I'd ever done. I wasn't sure I was ever going to get through it. I had to work hard, and it was hard for me. But when I got that degree, that really gave me a lot of self-satisfaction, and I think that was one of my greatest single accomplishments. The other accomplishment that I think happened in my life was when Mr. Papen, the senator,